Hey there, welcome to another edition of Blueprint Digital, where we discuss industry trends, challenges, and opportunities in the construction space. Today, we're joined by Mark Brennan, founder of Kynoch Labs, a system integrator in the Salesforce ecosystem. Welcome to Blueprint Digital, Marco.
Hi, Troy. Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
So, give us a quick overview of your company.
Absolutely. Kynoch Labs is only 2 years old. It's a baby, but it's my third time around building a systems integrator on the Salesforce platform. And our mission, very similar to the first two, is to bring elegance and excellence to mid-market companies that are Salesforce customers. So very big market for us out there. The ceiling is very high above us. We are still fairly boutiquey. We are a small company with only a few systems solution architects and engineers on staff. Yes, we're 2 years old. We kind of specialize in a few industries, construction and, generally public works being one of them, but also manufacturing and distribution, tech because we're here in San Francisco, financial services because we just accidentally happen to speak that language quite well. We've just got a good, nice, long track record in helping fintech and finserv companies. And also there's one that we accidentally really like is hospitality and membership. Don't know why. We just sort of fell into a few great opportunities over the years and really enjoy doing that. So there we are. We're not inherently different from the several thousand other Salesforce partners. But I think what's different about us is that we are less formal and much more willing to own it. So you can't know everything at the beginning of a project. You're going to learn together, and we adapt and adjust and learn, I think, faster than other partners and other consulting firms because we're less formal and we're less rigid. And so every day contains some sort of lesson for us that we will try to wrap into what we are and what we do.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. Today, we're spotlighting a potentially market disrupting service in the surety space. Tell us about this new innovation development.
Yes, absolutely, Troy. So we generally have a bit of a rule that we kind of anonymize our projects unless we specifically have permission to talk about them. But actually, Dixon was going to be with us today, and he just had a very busy week. So we can actually name it. So the client is SRC Digital Insurance Services. It's a startup, and the founder, Dixon Wright, is a long-time surety guy. I can't quite articulate his entire resume, but he spent a long time at Wells Fargo running the surety unit there. What is surety? Just for your audience who might not know, let's just give the sort of elementary school definition. Large projects essentially have a form of insurance that brings in a third party that says, if the general contractor or one of the larger subcontractors happens to fail in the middle of this project, which is hundreds of millions or even $billion project, we will step in and we'll make sure that the project can continue, whatever the fix may be after an essential contractor fails or gets too far behind to continue the job. Surety basically owns that. And that's probably a very lay definition of surety. But that's essentially who the client is. And they have a tech arm called FizTech. And essentially, they've got a really it sounds obvious, but it's actually a brilliant idea here. The problem that they're solving is the construction industry is very siloed, like many other industries. So everyone's got a tech stack, but the tech stacks don't talk to each other very well. Yes, sure, they have APIs that can push invoices. Builder Chain is a good player, but Procore and some of the other, Sage, so some of the big players don't really punch a very big hole into the silo. And so the shared access to key information is not really a thing. Dixon has been working on this for a while, and his original problem to solve was that everything's on paper and that actually bonds are paper-based with a wax seal. It sounds unbelievable that we could be still doing this in this decade, but actually bonds are often issued on paper. So this is not just a digital experience. The real problem is that the industry isn't able to see risk and isn't able to see performance very well at all. And everybody agrees that they'll be able to, everyone's going to perform much better when they can see how a project is doing, and they can see deep into not just the essential financials, but the liquidated damages, the stop orders, the RFIs, request for information, all of the little events that can happen and do happen during a project. If you can see them all and what they mean, you have a better chance at gauging the success factor of this project. And then it's 2025, so you don't have to read all that to know that. You can ask your AI to tell you and to maybe give you a score for the entire project, because this is a lot more reading than any human really wants to go and do. So super exciting project. And we've been working on it for a few months now. We have built a Salesforce-based portal, which is an experience cloud essentially for the Salesforce fans out there, with a very small back end of Salesforce users and a very scalable front end for essentially this would be the online banking of surety broker, surety company, insurance broker, insurance company, obviously the principal contractor and their subcontractors. Everybody gets to go in here and everybody gets to contribute their piece of the information. And our data structure basically ties it all together and understands the main contract, the obligee, like which has been maybe City of San Diego, or usually it's a public entity, and all of the subcontractors and all of the agreements that tie together into this tree, if you like. And then we get the payment application data fed into us so that we can monitor and score the health of the project.
Very interesting. It's almost like a D&B for the surety world.
Absolutely. That I've used that analogy myself. So a D&B for this world. And if you're a small business and you're applying for credit, you'll probably knowingly or not knowingly plug into Plaid, which will allow Plaid access to your bank account. And from that point onwards, Plaid can see exactly everything that's inside and can automatically score your financial health. Well, this is kind of like Plaid plus plus will automatically score your project performance. So a week ago in Washington, D.C., our client became aware of the big boys in the surety industry announcing a thing called Surety Bind, which is a reaction to what we're doing, which is very exciting and complementary, or a complement, shall we say, to our endeavors so far. And it's really just the four biggest players in the surety industry announcing something for 2027, where they will roll out a platform that does some, not all, of what we're doing. So it's actually pretty exciting that, with all of the resources and financial reach of the four biggest players, they're not even beating what we're doing. It's actually very encouraging that we must be doing something right.
So you're still going to be first to market. So you'll have that first mover advantage, even if the big boys come afterwards.
Yes. So the challenges remain significant. The technology here has to scale. And I think that a Salesforce Experience Cloud can scale pretty well. Hundreds of thousands of records, millions of records, security, permissions, architecture, etc. We've done some pretty fancy things. We've kind of stretched Experience Cloud to do some things that it doesn't naturally do every day. So it will be interesting. I think we're pretty safe in terms of what we've built. It will scale really well. I think the bigger challenge is this is eBay before there are any things for sale on it, right? Or Craigslist, or this is a social platform, and it's no good until people show up. So adoption is going to be really interesting. That's above my pay grade. I'm the engineer building this, but of course I'm invested in its success.
It's very exciting, very interesting application and potential. As you turn to your day job, still a lot of economic uncertainty, growth stagnation in terms of jobs. The Fed cut the overnight borrowing rate another 25 basis points recently, so it's down a full point, but still a lot of folks out there, they're not very sure about what's going to be moving forward in terms of economic growth, GDP, et cetera. What are you seeing and feeling in your business? That I have to think that there's a lot of correlation there, that people aren't going to spend on Salesforce solutions if they're not sure how much top line they're going to be generating.
That's right. Great question, Troy. I founded Kynoch Labs 2 years ago before Agent Force was announced a year ago at Dreamforce 2024. However, Salesforce had an AI platform even before Agent Force. It was Einstein, it was predictive AI, it was insights, and it was already a very promising play. Agent Force, I believe, is transformative and a very powerful strategic weapon in business. The large language models are becoming commoditized and almost interchangeable. It doesn't really matter where you point your API or where you point your prompt. You're going to get similar kind of results. The vibe is a little different between one and the next one. But Salesforce was smart not to jump into that and spend 200 million training an LLM and then finding themselves in a rat race. What's happening, though, is there was no friction inside of an organization for individuals to go to a large language model and start using it to help them in their job. It didn't need an organizational shift. It just needed some more enterprising people in marketing, legal, HR, finance. No matter where they are in the organization, there's no barrier to somebody going to get ask an LLM to help them. And they did, and they are, and it's working. And the adoption has been spectacular. And the effect on business has been spectacular. Companies can do more with fewer, but with the same number of people. For agentic AI, it's different. It needs an organizational push to reach agreement on which way to go, and then to go and build and implement one or more agents that will, instead of responding to your prompt, they will work 24/7 while you sleep to do specific things, to specific roles in your organization. That's one barrier. Well, agreeing is one thing. Then building it and implementing it is another. And then, of course, compliance and fears of customer-facing errors and hallucinations and, inappropriate responses. I think those are essentially the headwinds that make Agent Force not as fast or as well adopted as it should be a year and a bit into its life.
What are some of the success stories and some of the horror stories with AI implementation? Because to your point, AI is it's here to stay. It's moving very quickly. I like to say that the pace of change is faster than ever, but it will never be this slow again. And it's amazing what AI can do, but in the same vein, it's amazing some of the things that AI doesn't do very well that you would expect.
Firstly, Troy, that's a great quote, and you and I chatted a few days ago, and I've used that twice. Thank you for the quote. It's absolutely true, and it's a really good one. I personally haven't seen any significant nightmares at all, except in testing, but you expect to see them there. So you start putting an agent together, and in its early days, way before it gets greenlit for production, it's responding poorly to, your own internal data quality. It's pulling the wrong thing. It's not reasoning very well with what's happening from the outside. It hasn't been given very good guardrails, and so it gets pulled off its initial purpose, and it starts trying to perform a task outside of its initial purpose, and it fails. But we have not seen even one get to production and then upset people. Haven't seen one. The bigger nightmares are compliance fears that pump the brakes way too quickly. We're testing things and we see something that wasn't very good. We weren't planning to deploy this tomorrow. So, we're still, a week or several weeks off, and somebody sees a response that wasn't really all that great, and they remember that. They continue to pump the brakes. I think the bigger problems are what I mentioned in terms of just organizationally understanding where do we, not we as Kynoch, but we as the client, as the company, where do we want to be a year from now? And what do we need to build? What agents do we need to build? And what jobs do we want them to do for us? There's a lot of kind of navel gazing and paralysis, honestly. And that's really the slowness in the marketplace.
Do you have a success story that you'd like to share?
Sure, we've got a few, a wine club an online wine club. It has no retail location. It's really one of our favorites. I was mentioning the hospitality and membership. So there are so many insights and so many things that you can do beyond our human ability to read everything that happens every day. We solved a couple of problems really quite simply for this wine club. One of them is just churn prevention, just to defend against possible churn. So reading the temperature of text message and app message responses from members, we've been able to identify who's probably leaving, especially if their order count has gone down dramatically. So there's a few things we can look at, and we can also take the temperature of their responses, and the agent can think, this person might be leaving. And then we put them into a special marketing campaign that essentially talks to them more warmly. And the numbers are actually quite impressive. We've helped them to rescue 37% of identified churn risk members. So that's kind of fun. And another thing that we did for them was a recommendation engine, which, again, recommendations are not new, but an agent that actually does this for you works 24/7 without a human touch, except when it wants to hand over to you. If it thinks it's off its skis and doesn't know what to say next, it's going to nudge you it's going to nudge a manager and hand it off to a human. But until that point, the agent is able to do those recommendations itself. So I think we're 2 years into a 25-year rewriting of the entire world. So the examples are small. So you really have to appreciate them for their smallness and for their potential significance over time. If this is what we've been able to do this year, what will we be able to do next year?
Very well put. Each episode, we like to ask our guests their biggest challenge or struggle within their business they'd love to solve. What's your biggest challenge?
I think the biggest challenge for us, and we're completely open about this and completely honest about it, is where do we find interesting and exciting pipeline? Where do we identify those future customers who want our help in solving this type of problem? I think that there are several things happening here. Some people think outbound email campaigns are dead because everyone's doing them. They're so easy to do. So everyone is kind of flooded with everyone who's a decision maker and a potential buyer at an organization is flooded with this stuff. So they're fed up. And it's also harder than you think to actually identify an organization and a leader at an organization with intent and with a genuine need and a genuine budget and a timeline. That's hard for us. We haven't cracked it yet. So I think that's the number one challenge is we're working on exciting things right now, but we would love to know, what are we going to be working on? Do we have a funnel full of interesting challenges and people wanting to talk to us? And sometimes it's a bit skinny compared to what we want.
Mark, it was great having you on Blueprint Digital. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I really enjoyed our conversation and your insights. I'd like to thank everyone for watching and listening. Until next time, I'm Troy Mann with the Ascend Integration Partners. Remember, the pace of change in the market is getting faster every day. Adapting to change is not a requirement, but neither is survival. Rise above with Ascend. Thanks so much.